Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Representatives from London's Metropolitan Police say that they are trying to piece together the details of a disturbing act of violence this week, after one man was killed and two others were wounded in a shooting attack believed to be linked to an all-night house party. The incident began at around 10 a.m. on November 10th, when police were called about a suspected shooting on Wells Park Road in the southeast London suburb of Sydenham. Officers arrived to find two people, a man and a woman, both of whom were suffering from gunshot wounds. The woman had injuries to her legs that were non-life-threatening, and she was quickly taken to a nearby hospital. A third person, who was suffering from similar non-life-threatening injuries, managed to drive themselves to the hospital and is also expected to recover. Sadly, though, the same couldn't be said for the man that police found at the crime scene, 30-year-old Curtis Green. He had suffered multiple gunshot wounds and died despite the best efforts of emergency responders. While a lot about the incident remains unconfirmed at the time of this recording, most local news sources state that Curtis had been attending a busy house party at an apartment complex just off the road where he was found. According to residents in the area, that party had started around 11 p.m. the previous night and had gone straight through to the following morning, with some telling the media that many people were still coming and going from the property as late as 7 a.m. As a result, it's been widely speculated that the shooting was related to something that happened at the party. However, the exact circumstances are unknown at this time and still being investigated. As for Curtis's family, they say that they are devastated and are now struggling to come to terms with the loss. They described the 30-year-old as happy, excited, and beautiful, saying he was an entrepreneur who owned both a local fitness business and his own clothing line. Adding further tragedy to the situation, Curtis was looking forward to the birth of his first child, who was supposed to be born in just 5 months' time. Police are asking for any members of the public who might have information about the case to please come forward. So far, no suspects have been identified and no arrests have been made. An Australian father is thanking police for saving the lives of him and his young son this week after they were held hostage in their own home by a dangerous man who was on the run during the middle of a crime spree. The whole thing began at around 2:30 p.m. on November 12th, when the 26-year-old suspect, who has not been identified by name, allegedly carjacked a woman at gunpoint in the town of Snake Valley, located about 80 miles west of Melbourne. After stealing the victim's white SUV, he began heading east, but was able to be tracked by a police aerial unit. The suspect was followed for over an hour until he arrived in the suburb of Weir. Here, he reportedly abandoned the stolen vehicle before attempting to carjack a second victim. However, by this time, police on the ground had caught up to him and he was forced to take off on foot instead. That's when things got a whole lot more dangerous. Not only did the man allegedly fire several shots at police as he was fleeing, he broke into a random home on Leon Drive and barricaded himself inside. That residence belonged to a family of 7. Most of them were out at the time. However, one of the homeowners, a man named Ali, was taking an afternoon nap with his 1-year-old son. Ali awoke to find the 26-year-old suspect inside of his daughter's room. The next thing he knew, he was in the middle of a terrifying hostage situation. The man reportedly threatened to kill him and his young boy. The harrowing situation lasted for nearly an hour, during which time police attempted to negotiate with the 26-year-old. However, he apparently refused to surrender and allegedly fired more shots at officers from inside. That's when authorities decided they had to act. They stormed the house, first bringing Ali and his son to safety. They then moved in on the suspect, utilizing a police dog to help take him down. The shirtless 26-year-old was captured by news cameras being hauled out onto the street in handcuffs around 4:30 p.m. Miraculously, no one was seriously injured during the ordeal, though it's easy to see how things could have gone differently. Recounting the situation in an interview afterwards, Ali broke down in tears, saying that he was terrified that he and his son were going to die. He also said he was grateful to police for getting them to safety. At the time of this recording, no motive has been revealed behind the dramatic incident, though police say that the suspect was previously known to them. They also say that they have received reports from residents in the area that the 26-year-old was acting erratically, including statements from some witnesses who said they saw him jumping on a trampoline at the scene of the hostage crisis before entering the house. The 26-year-old remains in custody and is expected to face formal charges in the coming days. Authorities in the South Korean capital of Seoul say that a U.S. live streamer has officially been indicted and is facing serious prison time this week, following months of obnoxious behavior while touring around the nation. Actions which have already gotten him kicked out of other countries and have earned him widespread backlash and condemnation. The man in question is 24-year-old Ramzi Khalid Ismail, better known by his online name Johnny Somali. And if you followed streaming-related news over the past couple of years, chances are you've already heard of him. For those unfamiliar though, Johnny Somali has created an entire career out of being, over want of a better word, a complete dickhead. His claim to fame is essentially traveling to countries and making as much of a public nuisance of himself as possible, all in the name of quote-unquote entertainment. To give you a few examples, during the 24-year-old's time in Japan last year, he harassed commuters on the subway with insulting comments about the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings, played loud and offensive noises and music on his phone inside restaurants and other businesses, and was arrested for sneaking onto a construction site while screaming "Fukushima" at workers there. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and unfortunately it was part of a broader problem at the time of streamers pulling stunts like this in Japan for attention and views. You may have also heard about the trend of influencers sneaking onto Japanese high-speed trains without paying and trying to avoid staff by hiding. Incidents like these caused major public backlash and anti-foreign sentiments in the country, and ended with tourists straight up being banned from certain areas, as well as some businesses. Even after being kicked out of Japan, though, Johnny Somali apparently learned nothing. Despite his relatively small following and his repeated bans across numerous platforms, including YouTube and Twitch, he was allowed to keep making content on Rumble. He went on to carry out similar antics in Israel before turning his attention to South Korea earlier this year. I'm not going to be able to list everything he's accused of doing here, because again, the list is quite long. A lot of it was similar to what he was doing in Japan, but there are two incidents in particular that have generated a ton of public outrage. Perhaps the most infamous of these happened on October 7th, when the 24-year-old went to the Statue of Peace, a memorial dedicated to the so-called comfort women of the Second World War. These were women who were victims of sexual slavery during the Japanese occupation, and it's a very important monument to a lot of South Koreans. While there, Johnny Somali filmed himself kissing, twerking, and dancing on the statue, which understandably a lot of South Koreans found wildly offensive. The second incident is the one that the 24-year-old is actually in legal trouble for, and it happened on October 17th. That's when Johnny Somali is accused of walking into a convenience store, assaulting staff, and pouring a bowl of noodles all over a table after being told he couldn't drink alcohol in there. A couple of weeks ago, the 24-year-old was taken into custody by police, who apparently initially did this for his own safety. He had been attacked at least 3 times on the street by locals, including another live streamer with a military background in the South Korean Navy. While in custody, though, he reportedly acted like a huge asshole again, and at some point was allegedly found to be in possession of unspecified narcotics. Right now, the 24-year-old has only been indicted on charges related to the October 17th convenience store incident. However, according to reports, if authorities go after him for the drugs, he could be looking at up to 10 years in prison. Apparently, Johnny Somali has changed his tune a little since his recent legal trouble and has become a lot more apologetic. However, reports we came across also pointed out that he's done this before, including in Japan, where he claimed he was just a young man who had made some mistakes. At the time of this recording, the 24-year-old has been barred from leaving the country until further notice. It remains to be seen where the case will go from here. Authorities in the Argentine province of Santa Fe say that they are investigating a mysterious disappearance nearly 2 weeks after a young woman vanished without a trace, leaving her friends and family desperate for answers. The whole thing started on the night of October 30th, when the woman in question, 20-year-old Sofia Delgado, left the home where she lived with her 2 sisters and niece in the town of San Lorenzo. It was between 9:30 and 10 p.m., and Sofia told her sisters she was just running out for a few minutes. It's believed she planned to go to a local shop. Her sisters say she clearly didn't intend to be gone long. All she took with her was her house key, her cell phone, and some money. Alarmingly, though, she never came back. Sofia was reported missing the following day, and since then, searches have been carried out all over the local area. However, things quickly took an unsettling turn. Authorities say that Sofia's cell phone disconnected around 11:20 p.m. the same night she disappeared. Even more strangely, apparently no footage of her has been found on CCTV cameras near her home. As part of the search effort, police utilized sniffer dogs as well as the last available information from her cell phone. This reportedly led them to a cluster of properties in a town just north of where she lived. Raids were carried out at several of these homes, and in one, a disturbing discovery was made. Investigators say they recovered women's clothing, hair, and traces of what is believed to be blood, which had been wrapped in sheets and hidden in a tank inside of a bathroom storage area. Currently, testing is still underway on these items, so it hasn't been confirmed whether they belong to Sofia. Just a few days ago, on November 11th, another raid was carried out at a property near the city of Pergamino, about 80 miles south of San Lorenzo. During that raid, police say they seized several hard drives and thumb drives, 2 notebooks, and a large amount of sex toys. They also arrested the 2 residents at the home, a 35-year-old man identified only by the initials AJB, and his 29-year-old girlfriend, ML. While police have stated that the couple were arrested in connection with Sofia's disappearance, so far they have not released any information on exactly how they are linked to the case. Some reports claim that the 35-year-old man was well known to Sofia and spent a lot of time with her. However, in another recent news report we came across, her mother said that she had no idea who they were. Speaking of Sofia's family, they are now demanding answers. They claim that police have not been forthcoming with what they know and say that they have been left in the dark since the beginning. However, Sofia's mother reportedly remains convinced she is alive. A reward of 5 million pesos, or about $5,000 USD, is being offered for anyone with information leading to the discovery of Sofia's whereabouts. At the time of this recording, the search continues. Authorities in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro say that a 26-year-old man is in custody this week after he was accused of fatally poisoning 2 young boys last month, one of whom was his former stepson. The whole thing began one afternoon early in October when the 2 young victims, 7-year-old Benjamin Ribeiro and 6-year-old Int'l Rosa, were rushed to the hospital. The boys had both started vomiting uncontrollably shortly after leaving school. Though doctors did everything they could to figure out what was going on, sadly, neither of them made it. Int'l went into cardiorespiratory arrest and died that same day, while Benjamin passed away 10 days later without ever leaving the hospital. After an autopsy was conducted, authorities learned that the boys had been poisoned. Specifically, it's been reported that both of them ingested lead-based pellets, ones that are illegal but which are often used as a rodent killer. At first, police believed that Benjamin and Int'l had been approached by an unknown woman who gave them chocolate after they left school. However, things quickly got even darker when CCTV footage allegedly revealed that the killer was Benjamin's former stepfather, 26-year-old Rafael da Rocha Furtado. According to local media, Furtado used to be married to Benjamin's mother, but the pair split up back in July. However, it appears Furtado refused to accept this. He continued telling friends and neighbors that he was still married and that Benjamin was his son. He also apparently did everything he could to maintain contact with the family, including taking Benjamin to school. It's now alleged that on the afternoon of the incident, Furtado picked the victims up and gave Benjamin a drink made with acai berries. It's believed that he was the intended target, but that Benjamin shared the drink with Int'l in an effort to be kind to his best friend. Remnants of acai fruit were reportedly found alongside the poison in each of the boys' stomachs. Following these revelations, authorities issued an arrest warrant for Furtado. He turned himself in to police on the night of November 12th. At the time of this recording, no information has been released about the alleged motive behind the heinous crime. According to local news sources, Furtado refused to speak with police after being taken into custody. The situation is still under investigation. Authorities in the island nation of Singapore say that a 42-year-old man is looking at some serious prison time this week after he allegedly lured police to a park with a fake emergency call, then tried to attack them with a homemade weapon. The whole thing started shortly before 6:30 a.m. on November 8th, when police were called to the Mangrove Boardwalk area of Pasir Ris Park with reports of a person potentially in need of assistance. A man had contacted authorities claiming that he had seen a woman in a bird-watching tower and that she appeared to be sitting dangerously close to the edge of a ledge. When officers arrived, they checked out the tower, but there didn't appear to be anyone there. They were still having a look around to make sure that no one needed help when they spotted a man who was walking towards them. The man, later identified as 42-year-old Timothy Heng Shengxian, was carrying a knife as well as an improvised flamethrower. As Shengxian got closer to the group of officers, he reportedly began shooting flames at them. Shengxian was ordered to drop the device several times and was warned not to come any closer. He apparently ignored these commands, with one of the officers finally pulling out their gun and firing at him twice. Shengxian was taken to a hospital afterwards where he underwent surgery before being placed under arrest. Police now say it was the 42-year-old who made the fake emergency call at the park, and that his plan was to lure them there in order to attack them. As for why Shengxian allegedly did this, currently no motive has been confirmed, though it has been reported that the 42-year-old was already facing 2 charges related to a September 2023 assault case. During that incident, Shengxian reportedly attacked a man at a restaurant, punching him in the face and breaking his nose. On November 6th, an arrest warrant was issued for Shengxian after he failed to show up for a court appearance related to the 2023 case. So, it's possible that this week's situation was the result of a grudge the 42-year-old had against police. Shengxian is now facing a charge of attempted murder. If found guilty, he could be looking at a possible life sentence, or a sentence of up to 20 years, a substantial fine, and a caning. Authorities in the Hungarian capital of Budapest released a tragic update in the case of a missing American tourist this week, announcing that her body had been found and a suspect had been arrested several days after she was last seen alive. The case began on November 5th, when the worried friends of Mackenzie Michalski began contacting authorities in both the United States and Hungary. The 31-year-old nurse practitioner was on what was supposed to be a fun vacation to the European country. However, no one had been able to get in contact with her. On top of this, she had missed her flight back to her home in Portland, Oregon, and friends had received a message from the host of the Airbnb where she was staying. The host explained that all of Mackenzie's personal items were still there. After launching an investigation, Budapest police learned that Mackenzie had been traveling with a friend, but that the pair had split up the day before she was reported missing. The friend caught a flight to Italy to continue their trip, while Mackenzie was supposed to spend one more night in the city. She had gone out to a club where witnesses stated that they had seen her dancing with a man. The 31-year-old was later spotted leaving with the same person. Using CCTV footage, authorities were apparently able to figure out that the man was a 37-year-old Irish citizen. The man's name has not been released at this time. However, several reports have identified him by the initials LTM. LTM was brought in for questioning on November 7th, where he explained that he and Mackenzie had gone back to his apartment after meeting at the club. He stated that they had an intimate encounter during which Mackenzie had died. He claimed the entire thing had been an accident. Despite this, based on evidence police were able to find, they alleged that the 37-year-old spent a considerable amount of time trying to cover up the crime. His internet search history revealed that around the time of the disappearance, he had looked up phrases such as, quote, "What does a dead body smell like after it decomposes? How did the police handle missing persons cases?" and "removing rotting meat smell." He had also looked up a specific lake near the town of Sigliget, whether there were wild boars there, and whether pigs really eat dead bodies. During his confession, LTM reportedly admitted that he had stuffed Mackenzie in a suitcase after she was dead and had driven her out to a wooded area near the same location mentioned in his search history. He said he left a suitcase in a vehicle he had rented there and had meticulously cleaned his apartment to try and destroy the evidence. He guided police to the spot where Mackenzie's remains were successfully recovered. At the time of this recording, the 37-year-old remains in custody on suspicion of murder, though it's unclear if he is yet facing formal charges. As for Mackenzie's family, they say that they are now struggling to come to terms with the devastating loss. In a statement, they said, quote, "We are thankful that Kenzie's soul is now at peace. Her memory and legacy will endure in the hearts of all whom she's touched. To understand Kenzie's spirit is to wholeheartedly embrace the vast joy and wonder of life. Her wish for the world: fully embrace the present moment, be your authentic self, practice kindness, and always walk in the light." At least 35 people have been killed this week, and dozens of others are injured, following a terrifying vehicular attack in China that has been called one of the deadliest acts of public violence in the country in years. The incident began on the evening of November 11th at the Zhuhai Sports Center in the city's Shangzhou district. The athletic stadium, which was originally built for the 2008 Beijing Olympics, was reportedly crowded with locals who had come out for a bit of nightly exercise, when suddenly the unthinkable happened. At 7:48 p.m., an SUV rammed through the barriers leading into the stadium. After continuing inside, the vehicle headed directly onto the running track, where, without warning, it began driving around at a high rate of speed. While those who were lucky enough to realize what was going on quickly scrambled to safety, sadly, dozens were caught off guard and were unable to escape. Many of these were elderly people or young children who simply had no way of getting out of the vehicle's path in time. They were horrifically run down by the driver of the SUV, who appeared to be targeting people at random. Police were quick to arrive at the scene and were able to stop the driver before he could escape. However, not before he inflicted serious injuries on himself with a knife. The man, later identified as a 62-year-old by the last name of Fan, was taken to a hospital and, as of the time of this recording, remains in a coma. As for the victims, heartbreakingly, 35 people have already been pronounced dead. A further 43 are said to be injured, though it appears that these numbers may still rise. Because authorities have not been able to question Fan, no motive has been confirmed, though there is widespread speculation that the crime was revenge related to a court case. According to reports, Fan had recently gotten divorced and was angry about the split of property and other assets. Unfortunately, at the current time, this is really all we know, and since it's China, there's a good chance not much else will be released. We've mentioned quite a few times here about how the country heavily censors news like this, and it seems the crackdown on this story has been especially swift and severe. Most reports only contain the barest of details, and many of the videos uploaded to Chinese social media by witnesses have already been taken down. In fact, footage has been circulated of a BBC reporter and his cameraman being harassed and told to stop filming after the incident. This happened outside of the stadium, and in the video, a man can be seen grabbing at the journalist and the camera operator aggressively while trying to stop them from reporting. Within hours, government officials were also seen dismantling and removing makeshift memorials to the victims that had been set up by grieving family members and locals. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.